Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I've got a lot of information for you today. Now, one thing I've been keeping in mind is Ripple constantly, over the years talking about how when they were, discriminated against by the banks, debanked, a lot of Ripple and a lot of DLT companies were getting debanked, right? But then I think it was about a month or two back, they were still mentioning things like that over the summer. They were still talking about things like that. And I said to myself, well, it's over with now. So what's the point of speaking like that? But sometimes to make a connection, don't worry, this is going somewhere major. You're going to like this, I think. Sometimes to make a connection with others, you have to let them know you went through the same thing. Who am I speaking about? Oh, I'm about to drop something major. Ripple is doing that for a reason. They want to let someone know we also were debanked. We also were de-risked. De-risked. That's the word of the video. Who has been de-risked and almost no one talks about? I haven't heard about it. I mean, they definitely put the new financial system out there for us to know about. Why didn't they talk about these others that we're about to delve into? Keep that in mind. Now, as I was doing a lot of good research for you good folks, I came across this. Interbank payments is what I was researching. Interbank payments. Sorry, I like to lean to the side. Sometimes that puts me on this side of the camera. That's just the way I like to lean. But let me come back to center. Interbank payments. I'm looking at everything in interbank payment system. And I come across this. The system, and I have a multitude of sources confirming it. The system, interbank payment system, is suffering from de-risking, quote unquote, where large banks terminate correspondent relationships with smaller or regional banks. Sorry, I'm gonna get a little loud. I'm a little excited. This was a very good find, in my humble opinion. Often in developing countries to avoid high compliance costs. That's not completely, or should I rephrase that? That's not entirely accurate. Who said that? There was somebody, I think it was in Jurassic Park 1, wasn't it? Something happened in Jurassic Park and one of the guys said that's not entirely accurate. Anyway, let's keep going. This creates financial exclusion. Who is it that was talking about all these years? Speaking of financial inclusion, Ripple, Stellar, a few others, Hedera. That's interesting, isn't it? We're going somewhere wonderful. I see a new portion of the vision. The bank money is ours. In my humble opinion, it's not financial advice. You don't have to agree with me. Just my humble opinion. Let's keep going. This creates financial exclusion and limits access to the global financial system. And I always said that when they said financial inclusion, it meant they wanted to include themselves into that value, that money. They were including themselves and taking a piece of that money. The bank coin companies, that is. And I was right. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. De-risking some banks. So this is happening just globally, right? Interesting. Global de-risking. Let's go down here. So, de-risking, the practice of de-risking is one of the most significant and problematic trends currently affecting the global interbank payment system. Global. We'll get to it to the U.S. in a moment. You think it's not happening here? That's what you think. Well, we'll get there in a moment. It is a classic example of an unintended consequence of regulations designed to promote financial integrity. Is that so? Or you could also use this to have a leg up on your competition, knowing that you control those systems like not only SWIFT, but the correspondent banking system. And if people don't play by your rules, well, you're a risk. I mean, it's not like the big banks who were taken to court multiple times last year that we observed, read about it in newspapers, online articles written about it. We cover those here on the channel as well. It's not like they're a risk, even though they had to get sued by the regulators because they weren't in compliance in a multitude of ways. But they're not getting de-risked. They're not getting excluded. So then why would you be de-risking all of these other banks? And now let's rewind. Let's go back to that first point. Ripple is letting all the banks know who were de-risked, which means what? They were cut out of the system. They were left behind. They were cast out. Do you know how much value is flowing through those banks? Oh, Mick, you're saying that because I looked. I took a little peek. You know, peekaboo. Remember that old game, peekaboo? I took a little peek into the numbers. And I like it a lot. Yeah, you do too. I told you. And what's also interesting, folks, before I go a little further with this information, which, by the way, if you like this powerful type information, these deep dives where I take these days and I'm really digging in and finding some things, take those powerful hands of yours and go like this and hit that like button a few times. And if you see a little ad in your life, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what you do with an ad. I mean, I know, but I'm just being entertaining with it. I'm just saying. You don't have to. I'm just saying. Now, wait a minute. All the places where Ripple, see, I went here. I could have just did this way, has built corridors is precisely where banks are getting debanked massively. Is that a coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence, but maybe you do. So therefore, maybe you could provide some very interesting insight on that. If you have an alternate view, they just happen to build corridors everywhere. That de-risking is heavy. That's interesting. And don't worry, like I said, we're going to come to the U.S. because a lot of you believe that the U.S., you think that the U.S. isn't going through that, right? Then another thing, why is it being buried? In my humble opinion, you would bury such a thing because you have this new system rising that connects everything together, allows anybody to participate in the system without having to rely on this hierarchical, antediluvian, anachronistic system that they've set up where you could be cut out. Now you can't be cut out because you use DLT, use XRP, use XRPL, use Hedera, use Chainlink, and you can connect to the world. A whole new world. A whole new world with that bank money. Trillions just here and there. Value everywhere. Stop playing like you, whatever. You know that's a good song. Where did that song come from? What was that movie? She was like a mermaid and then she became a person. Little Mermaid. I haven't seen it in years. Somebody, you know, Mick, what movie it was, Mick? How are you going to tell me what I know? You know, I have all these different mathematical equations I got to go over my regular life. All this research I'm doing, it's hard for me to remember some movies, but that was a good song. I just remember that. Anyway, you're singing and stuff. Don't worry, let's get back to this. So, US, keep that in mind. That's what Ripple has done. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. You think that's it? Come on, you should know me better by now. Wait a minute. I just try to make it interesting. So, of course, de-risking refers to the practice by large global financial institutions like major correspondent banks. Another reason that the bank system is turning against SWIFT. Whether they have their connector piece or not, that's all it is. Because why? The banks have kept the option to have their preferred DLTs, preferred technology and providers. Where did we get that from? We got that from their documents we went over. Their documents. That's not my phrasing. That's theirs. Okay, so they have their preferred DLTs. Why? Because they know this system is coming down, but they must participate. Not just must participate. They want to participate because the flood of value that's going to go through them now, because not only will their value flow through these systems and skyrocket XRP's price, but what people are not thinking about is all the value that's stuck. That's trapped, stuck from these banks that have been cut off. Not only banks, other financial institutions have been cut off, and that value is not touching the correspondent banking system. Now that they're going to be using XRP and things like that for liquidity and bridge currencies, they need it, and there's no way around it. We'll get back to liquidity aspect on another video. Today, we're cooking. Yesterday, I had a massive headache. I did the best I could, and then there was some kind of weird technical problems on YouTube. I don't know. Today, hopefully, there's no technical problems, and we're cooking. Hopefully there's none. Appreciate you supporting through everything. But now, not only will they explode the price of XRP, for lack of a better word, because of the value flowing through it from the established banks, which are never cut off from anything, but also that value from the cut-off banks will now flow as well, which most people, almost no one is taking into account how much per year, almost $600 billion. That's just what I can scrape up, folks, because you have to, there's some of these banks, we're not able to access their financial documents and look at the numbers. So just from the ones we can, $500 billion that the legacy system isn't touching at all. But Ripple is in those regions. What regions? Once again, we'll get back to the US. Places in Asia, places in Europe, places in Africa, places in Latin America. This is happening everywhere. But we don't hear about it. Interesting, is it not? That's what Ripple was attempting to do. If that's not a secret move, a secret chess move, I don't know what is. They're performing, if I want to put it into chess terms, which would be very, very basic, because I'm just beginning as an advanced chess player, that is. This is like a Caro Khan. They're slipping a bishop in. They're slipping a bishop in. People, nobody's seeing this. Somebody's like, Mick, you used a Caro Khan? I use a lot of different things. A lot of different things. That's what this is. If this is not a secret, what is? So they're causing this identification with others who have gone through such, and potentially bringing favor to Ripple and XRP. They're like, wait, they went through the same thing. We did nothing wrong either. So now they're more apt to accept a meeting with Ripple, which Ripple is going to do what? Every meeting they take, they're pushing XRP. They're pushing XRP super hard. I'm just going to let you know. And then they just like, here's some RLUSD. That's how it's going. I mean, listen, make up your own mind about it. Do your research. Talk to people behind the scenes. Make a few phone calls. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are arriving at the same conclusion. It's not that difficult. But doesn't mean that what we hear is true. But when Brad Garlinghouse comes out, he's always pushing XRP. Look at the major... Do a Google search. If you get a chance, you don't have to. I know you have a long day. You got businesses to run. You have work to go to. I know that already. You got activities. You have children and families to raise. You got health to take care of. I know that. But if you do get a little bit of time, just type in Brad Garlinghouse XRP quotes 2024 and 2025. It's going to tell a whole story. I'm telling you. And then on top, then just do a general search of like Ripple XRP comments 2024, 2025. Read all of them. They tell a story. They're pushing XRP super hard. So then what we're hearing behind the scenes is going down in meetings is the same thing that they're coming out and pretty much confirming. They're saying the same thing in public. It all makes sense. So you have the trillions from RWA, trillions from the regular interbank payment system. You have trillions from possibly payroll. And these are consistent values. You have XRP treasuries popping up everywhere. Why do they want to profit off XRP so badly? What is telling them that XRP is going to skyrocket in price to the point where they're all doing XRP treasuries? All the different banks, including Bank of America, one of the biggest banks in the United States, praising XRP for years and XRPL for years. Why? You think that's all for nothing? People are going to tell you that's for nothing? Or wait, are we supposed to believe that it's only supposed to be $2, $3, $5? That's it. That's why they praised them. That's why they're starting XRP treasuries to make a few dollars. I beg to differ. I have to humbly, respectfully disagree. No, they're not here for $2. XRP goes to $5. Yay. Okay, sure. Yay, sure. That's not what the banks are in it for. The large asset managers are in it for. A few dollars. Let me continue on. I have a lot more info to give you here. All right, so let's scroll down. So, global banks have faced massive fines from U.S. and European regulators for processing, quote unquote, illicit funds, is what they claim, right? The potential for reputational damage, etc. So these are the reasonings behind them cutting off certain institutions, right? This is what they claim. The complexity of cost. Another thing. So you see how DLT solves this. Smart contracts and AI ensure there's nothing that anyone can claim is below the board. Everything must be kept above board. Everyone must play ball now. But the positive part is if they're wise and they get involved, whether it's through infrastructure or utilization of XRP or holding XRP or XRP treasuries or in a private ecosystem, whatever way they do it, they profit from it, or lowering costs, or maybe not even just lowering costs. Apparently here, avoiding fines, they benefit greatly. Hence why everyone wants to be involved. So let's scroll down here. Who is most affected? Correspondent banking relationships. The number of CBRs has been declining globally for over a decade. The number of, we could just take away correspondent. Let's just say banking relationships. That's what it is. I think everyone can understand that clearly, right? Well, a correspondent banking relationship, that might be a lot to take in at the end of a workday, right? Banking relationships has been declining globally for over a decade. And once more, if you need more clarification, a little Google search will take you a long way. Or Yahoo. Nick, you always say Google. That's what I use. So you could use Yahoo, Bing. It doesn't matter to me. The point is, the messenger isn't the point. Do you get the message? So the point of it is, do a little search. It's going to take you a long way. I'm telling you, seeing these things with your own eyes is nothing better than that. It continues. Large banks drop their relationships with smaller respondent banks. And that's another thing that's interesting. Let me put this out there. This also goes along. I think there's a lot of manipulation here. You don't play ball. You don't do what we want you to do. You don't pay the fees we want to heap on top of you. You're a smaller bank. We'll squash you. Now, years ago, remember that document? A few of them. Back when we used to read transcripts, the banks would have these big meetings. And back then it was easy to find the transcripts of these things. We used to read them. That video should still be up unless they took it down, because I don't take down anything. Should still be up. And they were saying how the big banks, this was in the US. I guess this is a good segue to go to those next few sources about the US. US banks were speaking on how they felt that larger banks were manipulating the system to crush them in order to absorb them, to acquire them. They didn't want that to happen, obviously, because they want to thrive on their own. But larger banks were not allowing that to happen. Does that not seem like maybe this will be a part of that as well? You're saying, well, Mick, that's US. Right. Segue. Let's go right over here to this. From now, these sources are US Department of Treasury. I beg your pardon. U.S. Department of Treasury. It doesn't get more serious than that. This is what they say, folks. It's not going on in the U.S. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. U.S. banks have occasionally terminated correspondent relationships with smaller domestic banks. Let's stop there for a moment. So now you understand why. One of the many reasons why, there's many. I believe it was Stuart Alderati said he believed the banks in the U.S. would use XRP. They want to get out. You have to understand that the new financial system, whether it's XRPL, well, XRPL is working with Hedera now, and they're also working with Cardano now. And Cardano's trying to work with Chainlink. So if they bring Chainlink on board, really Ripple, Hedera, Cardano, and Chainlink would all be working together. That's unbelievable, because we called it years ago. I used to use the phrase forming Voltron, right? And now we see it happening. But they look at the banks, look at this opportunity as a way to get out from underneath the claw, the control mechanisms of the bigger banks. Fair across the board. That's what they used to say, right? Or how did it was a phrase they used to use. I can't remember what it was, how they said it, but you remember that years and years ago, it was like maybe 3 years ago, they were all using this phrase about equality in the financial system and having things fair across the board. Well, that's what's happening here. You can't kick them out. They're working on their own system. We're working on an independent, neutral system. And now we're finding out that neutrality is beneficial in a variety of ways, not just working with other nations, etc., that are cut off from Western systems, and the West working in the East working with Western systems that are cut off from the Eastern systems. But within their own systems, there is this divide. for lack of a better word. So they're all desiring heavily the new financial system, DLT systems. Now we know why they're running towards it so brutally. And what Ripple is doing, in my humble opinion, I don't know these folks. I don't work with them. I've never spoken to not one of them at that company or any of these companies. I stay independent, but it's in my humble estimation from my observations, my research, and I believe I'm a very good researcher. I do. All right. I say that in all humility. I'm not saying I'm the absolute best. I'm the best. I work to be the best. I'll keep that in here internally, but I believe I'm a good researcher. I trust myself. I believe they see 500 billion there. There is actually 650 billion right there. But I mean, the safe estimation was $500 billion is on the table. You can find that same number. If you do your research, you're going to find that same number. There's no way around it. It's coming from official sources. They know they can take that easily. Those banks and financial institutions are just left out there in the cold. No one to help them. No one to save them. You don't think they want a hero? And I'm painting that picture because that's how I think that conveys the point. They do want a hero. They want a chance to thrive. They want to do business anywhere. They want a chance to absolve themselves also from those claims and show through the use of smart contracts and AI monitoring literally everything that they're doing to show, hey, we're not doing anything wrong. You wrongly cut us off from the system. Now, is there a possibility some of them were rightly cut off? Sure. But, I'm trying to stay as balanced as possible. So you just heard me bring up the possibility that they might have erred. But there's also the big possibility of they're just being manipulated and cut off from the system because they don't want to play ball. In a variety of ways. It's not just within the banking system, but that could be extrapolated greatly, greatly. So U.S. banks have occasionally terminated. They even took, they took action on this actually this year. U.S. banks have occasionally terminated correspondent relationships with smaller domestic banks, credit unions, or fintechs that serve high-risk clientele. This is what they claim. I want to go here. They took action on this as well. Some banks have pulled back from partnerships. Bear with me one moment, folks. Bear with me one moment. Maybe I have to scroll up here. Yes, here we go. Ooh, I found it. My word. Now, it says this. So this is coming from Perkins Cole, okay? In August 2025, a new executive order on fair banking was issued to combat exclusionary practices. Once more, I want to iterate and point out. They made it like this was all about the DLT companies. They were cut off. Yeah, the crypto companies were definitely debanked. They were discriminated against, etc. But why focus us on that? Why not talk about the banks that it was happening to? What's the names of these? What are the names of these banks? That would mean a little bit more research done if we wanted to uncover that. Who are these banks? Right? Why haven't we heard of any of this? When it comes to bank on bank violence, right? That's what it seems like, does it not? It prohibits banks from denying services based on political or religion. Wow, they went that far? I wasn't even thinking like that. I'm thinking, they don't want to utilize the service, pay these fees, acquiesce to this system, acquiesce to these particular demands. That's why I'm thinking. I wasn't even thinking all of this other stuff here. Whoa. But I guess that opens up a new can of worms. See? This is why it's good to have different opinions on things, different thoughts on things, because it might bring something new to light. This move directly targets reputation-based de-risking, exactly, and mandates that part right there sums everything up very, very well, and mandates federal agencies to revise supervisory guidance. Now, are they going to actually do this? Just because rules are made doesn't mean they're going to follow them. As we saw once more, they simply paid the fines. They continued to violate regulations and got sued by the regulators, the big banks, very big banks. All right. So that was last year. So it's not like it was a long time ago. So we shall see. But $500 billion to safe number, $650 billion on the table from what we can scrape up on the numbers. As far as banks that have been cut off from the system, and Ripple has positioned themselves globally to take that. XRP will explode because of things like that. That's easy money because they need a hero. because they're left all alone. And any of these bank coins can scoop that up, but Ripple is in a prime position. That's why I use them as an example more than others, right? They're in the front. They're in the driver's seat. So what is this here? There's a little bit more here. De-risking can disrupt correspondent banking relationships, right, which are essential for cross-border payments and financial connectivity. Exactly. I have a feeling this leads to much more, but it's going to take some more research. Today, it was a heavy research day. Sometimes I just have mid research days and I'm just looking, but that doesn't consume my entire day. But there's other days like today where it just consumes me from morning till night. My mind is just on it. I can't sleep well if I have a question on my mind, if I'm questioning something or I need to know more about something, I literally can't sleep. But if you've been on this channel for a long time, you already know that, especially if you're in the members only section, you know that. It's just like I can't rest well if I don't get something done. Like if I know something has to be done, I can't relax until it's done. But now you know a little bit more about me. Let's go here. A little bit of I had more information. How much? Woo! Let me get to this Bitcoin news. I had something else. We'll come back tomorrow, and we'll once again, if you like this type of information, make those powerful hands, hit that like button. All right. So let's get to some Bitcoin news. We'll come back tomorrow and discuss some more potent things. I had something I didn't even get to. Two things, matter of fact. This article is titled Bitcoin to $2 million. Tom Lee and Michael Saylor think so, but analysts disagree. What that tells me, I'm not worried about a $2 million number. I know that's very high. It's very, it's hard for people to wrap their minds around. And I'm not saying it's going to $2 million. I don't know how high Bitcoin is going. I'm not here to proclaim such. But what it tells me is that they have a reason. This is what's important. They have a reason to be super bullish on Bitcoin. That's what I take from that. Not the number, but the potentiality. They think it has. They know something. These are people who have they're not doing their own research. Maybe they do a little bit. They have some of the best paid researchers, best paid financial analysts on the planet. That's who's telling them. Or there's no way they're making a move without the approval and backup of that research and analysis. No way. Not at that level. Not playing with that type of capital. They're not here to make big mistakes. They're certain because of that. What those researchers and financial analysts presented to them to make them so bullish, anyone's guess. I have my theories, obviously, the states want Bitcoin, things like that. States want Bitcoin, large asset managers want Bitcoin, central banks. We've seen some experts talk about central banks getting involved at some point. That could be explosive. If you see what central banks have done for gold, I believe what's the world. If you want to know more about gold, just the history of this surge that gold is experiencing. I think they just put out a visual chart. I'm not sure if it's on World Gold Council or not, but you can check there. Maybe it's on Kitco as well. But they have a visual image of different charts that show gold's explosion and the catalyst that caused such. It was very interesting. But let's read this little tidbit from the article, okay? Find out what they're talking about. So it says here, Bitcoin's growing mainstream appeal has continued to spark bold price predictions, with some of crypto's most vocal advocates calling for stratospheric valuations, but analysts disagree. All right, well, people love to argue. That's just they find it entertaining. They love it. They love the adrenaline rush and the euphoria of feeling like they won or engaged in a battle. Humanity has always been like that. So they're going to, and once more, just taking a softer touch, there's always going to be opposite polarities when it comes to viewpoints. It's just that simple. No need to argue. They believe what they believe. You believe what you believe. And what you believe is not going to change what they believe. I don't think so. And what they believe should not alter what you believe. You should be thinking for yourself, with all due respect. Not you, but whoever's debating here. That's what I mean. All right. So BitMine chairman Tom Lee, speaking in an interview with Anthony Pompliano, said that the long-term value of Bitcoin could rise to between $1.6 million and $2 million if the asset eventually equals gold's total market capitalization. Let's keep going. Quote, well, gold is moose first and then Bitcoin catches up. Gold is moves first. Okay. Not familiar with that phrasing. Then Bitcoin catches up. Gold is doing its own thing. I wish the comparisons would stop. And you don't need to point to gold and say, look at what gold did in order to get people bullish for Bitcoin. I don't think like that whatsoever. I don't even need to think of them both in the same breath. I don't need to speak of them. That makes sense. I just view them separately. They have no connection, in my humble opinion, except once in a while, as a protective asset, value flows into gold from Bitcoin and other cryptos and other assets beyond crypto. Gold protects it, and then sometimes there's an outflow back into the market. That's just natural. Been happening for years. Other than that, I don't think there's that solid connection there. So now, it says Lee said that as gold's quote network value rises, it creates a higher benchmark for digital store of value assets like gold, like Bitcoin. That's a connection that you're creating, right? But okay, respectfully, I say, in my humble opinion, gold has surged more than 115%. Yeah, it's looking great in the past 2 years, reaching an all-time high of $4,381 in October before retreating. Bitcoin, meanwhile, has gained about 150% since the start of 2024, outperforming gold's roughly 100% rise over the same period. While Bitcoin briefly fell from its October 6th record high, it continues to trade in near key support around $107,000. Yes, but what is it today? I didn't look at the price today. I've just been researching today and just keeping busy. So then Michael Saylor says, echoing that optimism, Michael Saylor, executive chairman of Bitcoin holding company strategy, has projected a longer term target of, wait a minute. Am I reading what? Has projected a longer term target of $21 million per Bitcoin. Holy smokes. $21 million? That's just interesting. I would like to know what you know, sir. Send me a research packet. Well, you know how much Mick. Michael Saylor's like, Mick, you know how much I pay for these researchers? Like how much I pay for? That's not a good phrase. How much I pay to these researchers? I don't care. Send me the research package. What are you seeing? Anyway, once more, it's not the number. I would not be in a Bitcoin waiting for it to reach $21 million or 1 million. That's just me. I only speak for myself. All right. But I am super bullish on Bitcoin. We'll see how high it goes. All right. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.